I have a little bit of a interesting, well, maybe it's interesting background. Started out actually, my degrees are in finance and accounting, and I actually started a journey in the finance and accounting world and the public audit sector. Have been a public company officer in the past. But early on, I actually got into software implementations with the large scale ERPs that everybody knows, Oracle, SAP, and then later on, Microsoft.
Welcome back to another episode of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. New shows every Wednesday. Today, my guest on the show is Matt Merritt. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation and look forward to spending some time together.
Me too. Me too. I really appreciate you being here. So just jump right in. So could you share with us your journey to becoming CEO of SnapBuild and tell me what inspired you to lead a fintech company specifically?
Yeah, great question. I have a little bit of a interesting, well, maybe it's interesting background. Started out actually, my degrees are in finance and accounting, and I actually started a journey in the finance and accounting world and the public audit sector. Have been a public company officer in the past. But early on, I actually got into software implementations with the large scale ERPs that everybody knows, Oracle, SAP, and then later on, Microsoft. So that getting into ERPs and then actually going down the path of working with companies to implement and then change their business process technologies and how to roll that out led me through a myriad of different experiences, both in the silicon chip manufacturing industries to you name it, to actually discrete manufacturing of components, and ultimately into the real estate world, where I was part of a multifamily company that really ran about 20,000 units of real estate in the multifamily space. And as I was winding down that journey, I was offered this opportunity at Snap.build to take this new way of thinking about how the business should be run and how this entire loan management process should be run, and being asked if I would help lead that entire transformation. And so with that, I picked up and became the CEO of Snap, and really around building this fintech platform as well as building a loan origination platform. And so I look forward to getting into that, but I am excited to be a part of it. I think that we've got a core technology, and our offering for what we're doing in this space is unique. And so I'm just very excited to be leading the charge and continuing to build the team to develop and then implement.
That's a great story. So how does SnapBuild's technology platform address the common challenges that are faced by small and medium-sized home builders when trying to secure financing?
Yeah, great question. So look, at the end of the day, what the philosophy that Snap.build has is that we are trying to sell speed. In this day and age, the arcane ways that the draw management process. In other words, in short order, in the lending industry, if you are a builder and you go get a loan from a traditional bank, you have to put out quite a bit of money on the to what they call front the money, so that you can buy your trades, you can buy your different inventories of what you need, right, to actually materials to build a house. Then you've got to aggregate all that information, hand it into the bank. The bank then has to order an inspection to make that a reality. Then they say yes or no, and then they finally come back and go, okay, builder, here's your money. That could be 4 to 5 weeks from the time that you actually submitted for repayment. And then they say, okay, here's your money. And by the way, you probably don't get it all because we didn't allow something. Or by the way, also, you can't do anything more than one draw, what they call that whole process, a draw per month. We've revolutionized that. We've literally said what we're selling speed. Okay. So our platform says, I don't care how many draws you want to do in a month. As you incur an expense and something is complete, put that in directly into our system via our interface. Put that into our system, and we'll pay that within 48 hours. So it is a continuous loop, right? Rather than that time of 4 to maybe 5 weeks and the builder having to float the cash and come out of pocket to pay their vendors and all. We stop all of that. We say, as soon as you get the invoice, as soon as it's hand it, put it into our system, and we will pay it within 48 hours. Not only that, we will pay that directly to the vendor. You won't have to worry about it anymore, Mr. Builder. We take care of that. So we have revolutionized in selling the speed. And what we find is that when utilizing our process in our software, our fintech that goes with this, that we can average a little over 3 months increase for that builder and shortening their duration to build. So if there used to be 12-month build cycle, now it's a 9-month build cycle. If it used to be a 9-month build cycle, now it's a 6-month build cycle. So imagine what value that gives with the cost of money, because we are fintech and what we do, the cost of money as well as the cost of time. So if I can get you to get your house built 3 months sooner, and you can hit the market 3 months faster than your nearest competitor and not have to go out of pocket the money to make that happen, is that not a competitive advantage? And overwhelmingly, the answer is yes, it is a competitive advantage.
Yeah, and I imagine that would be huge. Because the time to finish build just means they can sell those properties that much faster.
That's exactly
Money
right.
back in pocket, so that's a crazy thing. I know when we were moving here to Vegas, we prior to coming here, we were looking at new builds, and right when the pandemic struck, everything turned upside down because they couldn't get lumber. I mean, some of the simplest things that you would never have thought would be a problem were a problem, and it was driving prices up because it was taking them longer. One builder actually explained to us, it's taking us twice as long to build, so we have to charge more. We don't have a choice. It's an interesting scenario. So, you're the CEO. So how do you balance the dual focus of finance and technology to drive growth and innovation in your company?
Yeah, great question. So we were a relatively small company when I joined, and about a year ago. And as we have continued to, grassroots bootstrap and make it happen with our existing team, we have been fortunate enough in the market to continue to grow at a pretty good pace. So what I've been able to accomplish here is hiring in. I really think of it. I have two businesses. I have a loan origination business, and I have a software development, software delivery, software company, right? So I've been able to hire some really good loan origination people to help run that business, a chief lending officer, and then their mid and back office that is around that origination business, that's allowing me, which is timely in talking to you, to now shift into building the software side of the company. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So prior to me coming into joining Snap, right, we were really a loan origination business that had a business process that was, we believe, faster, but we didn't have enterprise level architecture to actually deliver on that business process at scale. We could do it for a couple of builders, but we couldn't do it for everybody, much less do it for third parties and or banks and things like that. So when you look at it and you have a loan origination business, that's how we appropriately pay the bills. That is truly a core of what we know how to do best, and that's a very solid business. We're just looking to add to that business. And the technology, building a team of developers who then have taken our technology to an enterprise level architecture. And I mean that it's scalable. We don't have to refactor it. It's actually built to last, right? And it's built to be multi-tenant. It's built to be multifaceted and can essentially work into different groups and different business genres. When I say that, I also say this. So I have a loan origination business that has a small technology group of people inside of it. Now it's time, and what we're working towards is building out our technology stack. And while we rely on some very core, we have a trusted business partner as our development stack, that's not it. Now I'm starting to layer in our go-to-market strategy. Our software works very well for us. Our software works well if we run it for other people. Now we're going to evolve that our software completely, if you will, stands on its own. And if a third party wanted to license it, we would implement it and they could run the platform. And that's where we're moving. So I have seeded the loan origination side with all of the appropriate leadership team to actually continue to grow that side of the business. and now I'm focusing on delivering that into our technology stack and platform.
Well, like I understand that you're a nationwide company, and I think one of the things people who don't operate in the United States don't understand is the complexity with being a nationwide company because every market is diverse and there are regulatory environments that are completely different across every state, right? So what strategies are you using to tackle that issue? Like I know it can be a real headache for some people.
Well, it's a headache for us too. So we are, to be honest with you, we stay out of some of the states we just choose not to be in business in right now. Let me give you an example. California, that can be a difficult place to do business. Nevada can actually be a little more difficult. I know that may sound odd, but as a lender, not excuse me, not about Arizona. Arizona, we will stay out of those markets for this, and then the Northeast, where it's very congested in that whole market. So look, what we then look at is it's the 80-20 rule, right? And we have a sophisticated legal group that makes sure that we're in compliance across all of our everywhere that we actually provide services, right? So this is one of those we're not all things to all people. We are a specific core to a specific group. And what I really believe is if you get that right, okay, and that once you have that right, then it's to go slow to go fast. Once I have that right, then we can progress much quicker. But you're right. Look, it is difficult to not run afoul of all of the different municipalities and or states and all that go with it. So we really have that strategy of let's not try to be all things to all people and serve every single market. Let's make sure that we delight our customers, and which are the builders primarily as our customers, that we figure out a way to be of value and delight those customers where we are, and then figure out how to expand around that. And my last one here is the other parts, and why we do all that is that we feel like we need to make sure that we truly own our own backyard before we go out there. If you look at really some great technology companies out there that have really all of a sudden overnight, they've just exploded. Really, it wasn't overnight. It was a lot of years of making sure that they really said grace and really owned their own MSA, that own market. And then all of a sudden everybody paid attention and went, oh, there they are. And so if I am fortunate and my plans function as intended, I hope that's us. That'll be us.
Yeah, like my oldest, he works as a um basically an Amazon sales expert. So like if you're selling something on Amazon, the companies that he works for, you go to them and they'll assign you an account manager like my son, and
Yeah.
they help you strategize how to grow. And he had one of his former bosses moved to Texas, and he had a company that he was working with a company there, and they wanted to hire my son. They ended up hiring him as an independent contractor because they could not figure out how to handle the health insurance requirement. And so what they ended up doing was just, paying him a stipend towards health insurance and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of insurance companies aren't doing business in California anymore for this this very reason. They're overregulated. And I mean, honestly, for my wife and I, it's why we moved out of California. I mean, I can't even tell you how much money we saved in income taxes just the first year alone. It's they want to become their own country essentially, but it's tough doing business there as a small business. So totally get that. It makes sense. I would have thought that's exactly what you'd say. So tech executives struggle with maintaining focus, often resorting to caffeine for a quick fix to their energy needs. I discovered Magic Mind, a small daily shot that enhances focus more effectively than traditional energy drinks or coffee, and it doesn't have the health concerns linked to excessive caffeine intake. Magic Mind tastes great. It resembles an herbal tea, and it's made with matcha, nootropics, and adaptogens for improved clarity and focus. It's literally been a game changer for my productivity, keeping me sharp all day. For those seeking a boost in focus, check out Magic Mind at magicmind.com/gaining technology. Our listeners get up to 50% off a subscription for the next 10 days or 20% off a single purchase with the code Tech Leadership. Visit magicmind.com/gaining technology and use code Tech Leadership. You can also find this product at Sprouts Farmers Market. As all businesses do when you're trying to scale, you face some challenges. So what challenges has SnapBuild faced in scaling, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, look, as I told you, the first one is that our original technology stack was not it was a brute force and a phenomenal business process, but just a brute force situation in which you had to be able to, if you're going to scale, you've got to be able to handle more with the same amount of people, right? So really refactoring and the software itself, and then the architecture associated with what can come on and how quickly it can process, and what additional processing we can basically turn on and on demand has been a big part of that. Number one, look. Number two, on the origination side, and while this is a technology centric conversation and platform, but on the origination side, it's an interesting market out there. The banks in the last 12 months and the failures of those banks, of those three main banks, right, really changed the landscape of regulators and what banks were thinking, which really brought in a lot more of the private lending and the private money associated. And the concept around that is essentially this, right? There's the old banks that are out there that get everything from the Federal Reserve and the Fed funds and all, and they're heavily regulated and they're stodgy and they're slow, and they have a lot of wonderful benefits too. Just when you think about speed, that's not one of them, right? But they are a safe pair of hands. They are very strong. They will never give you the leverage, right? But they will keep you from growing as fast as someone could possibly grow. And then on the other hand is a completely unregulated world. And so what we have had to overcome is balancing Snap's ability to go borrow money, essentially credit facilities, both private money lenders as well as traditional banks, and how to put that capital stack together to then put out to the market. We have been fortunate in that we've had more demand than we've actually had funds to fund all of the opportunities that people have brought to us. And so continuing to overcome that and continuing to find and drive down our overall cost of capital, this is in the financial world. What I'm talking about is really table stakes, and it's just part of what it is there. But when you're bridging the gap between the technology, which is what we're doing in this whole other financial world, and how you bridge it and bring it to a builder, and if you think about the fact that that it's no longer just a community bank out there that's dealing in this home building space, in this whole multifaceted industry, we're trying to drive that technology that is available to more sophisticated groups, all the way down to a mom and pop builder. And our whole goal of doing that is to drive speed. It's to drive them from building 5 houses or 10 houses a year to building 50 or 75 or 100 houses a year, without, again, the multiplication factor of it all, which is, well, how do you do all that if you don't keep growing people? Well, part of that is you don't need to grow your accounts payable staff. You don't need to grow your AR, AP, and check writing. We do all that for you. So we're a force multiplier for those guys. And so figuring out how to go solve the money, and then figuring out how to solve the technology play, and then how that connect the two seamlessly, and living within the parameters of how banks want to interact with anybody who borrows money at any point, has been the challenge. And we continue to work with it every single day. I'll give you one more thing. We make it a point to pay all of our vendors that are our builders vendors and all. We pay that via an ACH, right? So there's no longer are we paying with checks. And in any other industry, you might say, well, that's just, of course you pay it. Why would you ever pay with a check anymore? This industry, not necessarily. It is a check, and then it is a whole multiple manual process that goes with that. So we've had to walk through, and while we are not at the Venmo, Cash App, PayPal stage of paying people through that because of banking regulation laws and your foreign corrupt trade practices, all of your different no KYC, know your client type banking things, while we're not there, we are a registered money mover using a technology, a third-party technology that allows us to move things seamlessly once it's verified through that ACH world. And when that happens and it's secure, then the cost of handling a transaction is significantly reduced. And so, and the time to be able to handle a transaction goes from days to minutes, hours and minutes.
Yeah, that's again, I think that that kind of innovation is important. A lot of people go into an industry like they're paying with check, so that's what I'm going to do is pay with check. I'm not going to rock the boat at all. So good for you guys. So tell me, how has your leadership style evolved since you became CEO of Snap Build?
Again, another good question. This is my first stint at being a CEO. I have been a managing partner and chief financial officer I've owned my own business, my own consulting business for several years, which was very much a servant. As owning my own company, it was in a consultative environment. It was very much about solving other people's problems. And even as the CFO and then COO of some other institutions, banks and otherwise, it was always about solving other people's problems, right? It was someone else had defined how this should work, and it was about bringing solutions to help solve that problem for them. This has turned into this. What I have figured out is that I don't have enough hours in the day to come up with to give all the vision and to think about where we need to go and truly understand or try to anticipate how we can get there, okay, and while also trying to actually solve other people's problems. And so over the last what's evolved for me is that I have a solid group of people who, everybody says this, but you surround yourself with talent. I have a very talented group of people that serve different roles throughout. And so what I have done is, I hope, have allowed those people to solve the problems while I'm thinking about where we ought to be going, and then managing the interaction of those groups so that everybody gets along. Because again, when you put together a bunch of different personalities and you put together their abilities to solve things in different ways is what is so important, right? It's that we don't all look at it the same way. We all look at it very differently. And then my job is to not try to make everybody see it the same way. My job is to make sure that everybody understands how we all see it so that collectively we come up with the right way. So really what I've had to do is get out of being in one or two lanes and actually oversee 4 or 5 lanes. And in doing that, I've had to realize that if I sit at my terminal and try to solve every problem, if I'm working in the business, I can never work on the business, and I need to really get outside and work on the business. So my leadership has been much more about not solving the problem for them, but saying, here's some things you ought to think about, and let me know how you decide to go about that, and if it makes sense, then we'll do it.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it kind of leads me to my next question. So, you say you have a person who's never been a leader before, but now they're put in a position of leadership. What advice have you got for that new leader?
Well, first of all, the number one and most important thing is believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, then you are not going to be, you can't lead anybody anywhere to do anything, right? You've got to believe in yourself. And that conviction and believing in yourself means that, and I was talking about this with my daughter yesterday. We were talking about her and where she might want to go to college someday, right? And I was talking about, look, no matter what in your life, you can say you don't know it, and then you need to follow it with, but I'll figure it out. And the difference in leaders is believe in yourself and go, well, I may not know, but I'm going to go figure it out. And so I would tell a new person that finds themselves in that position, believe in yourself and have conviction. The next thing I would tell them right after that is be wrong as fast as humanly possible. In other words, not analysis paralysis, but be wrong as fast as humanly possible. Figure out a way to go attack the problem and see what works or doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, right, change, keep going, keep innovating, keep figuring out a way to do it. So those are the two. Have absolute confidence in yourself, not arrogance, not being stuck up, but have confidence and believe. And then the other one is be wrong as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because like I teach my clients when if they want to manage their team better to, in monthly meetings, do a what's working, what's not working scenario, just to get them thinking about that, because all too often we either only notice the bad things or we only notice the good things, and you kind of have to see both. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of an interesting
Good.
thing. So I always like to throw in a question or two that might throw you off a little bit. It's not necessarily themed to the topic. So the
Okay.
first one I want to throw at you is, so if you could uninvent one thing in the world that everyone else loves, what would it be?
Well, listen, I would have to, it's controversial, right? But I would really love to uninvent some of this social media, right? I believe that how it is an absolute, just a time black hole. And so if I could figure out a way to uninvent that, I probably would. Do I think that it has been at times a good thing? Yes, but I think having all of that information at people's fingertips that aren't necessarily ready for all that. I'm really speaking about young kids and
Yep.
impressionable and the norms that go with that. I feel like that's the one thing that really it doesn't I am a parent of three kids, two teenagers now, one that's in college. So, my teenager that's my young 21 that's in college coming into her senior year, and think about that over the last 10 years of how far everything's come, and trying to monitor and drive that for kids, and figure out what's the balance between for them and the social norms of how much has changed, and whether that's good or bad. I tend to think it probably is a little more bad, because those bad habits usually pick up a lot faster than any good ones do. So I'll say that, and that may resonate with people. I don't know, and actually I really don't care whether that resonates with them or not. It's just the fact that that's probably something that I'd like to be able to slow down at least.
Well, first thing I'll tell you is I suspected that was what you might say, but it's definitely what I would say. If I was asked that question, that's exactly what I would say. And
Yeah,
I mean, you probably have as well, but I mean, my first piece of web software ran on the Netscape 1.0 browser. So, I mean, I've watched web
yeah,
technology evolve over the years, and I know it sounds kind of stuck up, but I always tell people I've probably forgotten more web technology than you'll ever learn. And most of that, and it's probably true, because usually when the web technology goes by the wayside, it doesn't make a comeback. So, I've
that's
seen all
true.
this stuff come and go. And what they used to talk about all the time, like when people had their own personal websites, was, oh my gosh, these people, they all think they're news. All think they're news people, and they're writing these blog posts. And how do we know that what they're saying is well researched and correct? Well, now you have social media where people are putting out these posts on a daily, maybe multiple times a day, and they can quite literally say whatever they want. And we've become like this headline society where you read the headline and off you go. I had a friend during the 2008 election cycle posted something on Facebook, like an article, and the headline was really enticing. But right away in the article, it says, "You've clicked on this article because of the headline, but I'm here to tell you that that's not what this article is about." And then the article went on to talk about how people don't read articles. And
Right.
he watched, and it got reshared and reshared and reshared and reshared and reshared. And then you'd ask people about it, and they're like, "Oh," and they'd recite the headline. They didn't actually read the article. So it's kind of scary what can happen with it. So I'm totally
Yeah.
with you there. But that leads
Yeah.
me to another interesting one for you. So imagine that Snapbuild could collaborate with any figure from history or a character from a book or a movie, okay? And you're going to do a project with them. Who would you choose, and what would the project be?
Wow. So see, now, my brain is not driving that direction. So who would I probably,
Yeah, it's a stretch, I know.
a person that I keep talking about a lot, and actually I worked for him at one point, and if I could just rearrange and reframe some things, is a guy by the name of Andy Beal, and you can look him up. He's alive today, lives in Dallas, Texas, actually, or the area around Dallas, Texas. It'd be Andy Beal, and I would actually like to collaborate on free market economies, and truly how to make how to revamp the United States banking system, because I keep coming back to it, and I've run into it in a good way so many times, and there are so many inefficiencies, and I think that he's a guy that has, and I know from working with him. And that's an interesting one, right? Why would you go back? It's a complicated conversation, but ultimately, uh, probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Very interesting frame of reference and perspective. clearly thinks differently than almost any human that I've ever met, and I've met several. And then, he's got some ideas that I think could actually work, and I'd like to work on that with him. I give you an idea. This is a guy who just as a big thinker, right? Quick story about Andy for a second. Well, when NASA back in 2002 or so said that they were they were going to get defunded by the government, and so it was going to go private. Andy Beal started an aerospace company this is back, think about Elon Musk now and SpaceX. This is back in like 2000 time frame, right?
Oh, wow.
And spent hundreds of millions of his own money in firing the largest rocket ever fired in the world, okay, in Waco, Texas, of all places, and setting up all logistics and hiring all the engineers and everything that Elon Musk, as a much younger man than Andy is now, went and did. Well, and then quite frankly, the United States government came back in and said, well, we're going to give $10 billion. We're going to fund NASA with $10 billion. And so that puts a person like Andy Beal and his space company completely, how do you compete with 10
Yeah,
billion with a B dollars, right? When you have a few hundred million, which is a lot of money in and of itself. And so he
exactly.
was thinking about how to make those things happen and had his perspective. So that's who it would be. So some people may think of some person in history otherwise. No, that's a true, tangible opportunity.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like the answer. So this has been a great conversation. Why don't you let our listeners know where they can connect with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest place to find me is snap.build, and hit the website. You will see my contact information there. Happy to anybody who reaches out. I always love connecting. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn under Matt Merritt, and you can find snap.build, and I'm connected there as well. Those are probably the two easiest places to connect with
Great.
me. And Mike, I just want to tell you, I appreciated the conversation and an opportunity to speak with you. I've enjoyed your questions, and so thank you for your time and this opportunity.
Oh, no, no problem. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. I mean, without guests like you, this show doesn't even exist. And I mean, I'd let everybody know over the weekend we passed a milestone. We're over 10,000 subscribers at this point, and the
Oh
show's only
boy.
11 months old. So
Wow.
we're moving along, brother. It actually shocks me to tell you the truth. When you have an idea and it just works out, it's a nice feeling. So again, thank you so much for your time, for being here. I know it's not always easy to take time out of your morning schedule to appear like this, and I truly appreciate it. So
100%. Thank you and take care.
yeah, you too. And thank you everybody for listening to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. New episodes every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It streams to LinkedIn and Facebook, and it also releases on YouTube on that time. So come back next week for another awesome interview.